Hi guys, my name is Nick Braunton and I'm a Random Fish. If you're a Random Fish too, hit that subscribe button and let's be Random Fishes together, shall we? So, the film that I'm going to be reviewing today, last time, on Tuesday, you heard me talking about Beta Ray Bill. If you haven't watched that video, I know you haven't because there's no views on it. What the hell, people? So, with this one, I wanted to do something a little bit more my speed, and it will probably just be me talking to a camera, no editing involved, nothing like that, because I need more practice and I don't really want to be doing it on a video that I'm putting out. I'm just going to sort of practice with my own stuff and we'll go from there. The film I wanted to review today was the third in a trilogy of films that, frankly, I feel weird calling a trilogy. Let me explain. In 1987, a film was released called The Lost Boys. The Lost Boys was an amazing film by Joel Schumacher, of all people. It's fun to actually see him actually do something right, which is kind of wonderful to see. But of course, Joel Schumacher ended up, he ended up doing some amazing things. He did some amazing things with the characters, with the lighting, with the very existence of the characters. Yes, it's true, there were some very, very heavy homoerotic tones within that film, but let's face it, there were homoerotic tones in everything that Joel Schumacher has ever made. So let's just move on. Or as I like to think about it is, the ambiguously gay duo. Anyway, but Lost Boys was made, and it was a big hit, and it was fantastic. You'd think, if they were ever going to do a sequel, it would be, at the longest, beginning of the 90s, possibly 91, 92 maybe. Once again with Joel Schumacher sort of attached, because he'd done pretty well up until that point and everything else, and he was even given a chance to do a Batman and Robin film. Less said about that Adam West rip-off, the better, I feel. But no, they did not do it in the 90s, as I so rightly thought they might have done, or thought they could have done. No, they decided to wait until 2008 to bring out the sequel to Lost Boys. 2008. Roughly 21 years after the first film came out, they brought out a sequel. Interesting. The weird thing is there's still characters from the original film in this film as well, despite the fact that it's a completely different plotline. And it's not even that film that I'm talking about, because that film was so bizarre and thrown out there that I thought, you know what, I can't even stand to see that. I can't even stand to put it in the Lost Boys category. It just seems like this very weird standalone film that, it's like how Rogue One, a Star Wars story, has, is sort of slightly removed from the main canon of Star Wars. It's not gotten rid of, it's just its own story. It's placed differently, away from the franchise, for fuck's sake. And so we get to the film that I want to talk about today, The Thirst. The third in the so-called trilogy. I personally just like to think of it as two films, a dual box set, if you will. The Thirst, the main character in The Thirst is, one of the characters is called Frog. Edgar and Alan Frog, the Frog brothers, two great vampire hunters. There's a comic book about them and everything based on the Lost Boys film, which is kind of cool. In the second one, you get Edgar Frog running around, helping out, doing his thing, and helping out as a vampire hunter, as he did in the first film. However, in the first film, where it was absolutely hilarious and frankly kind of much needed, he added seriousness and yet hilarity to the role at the very same time. In the second one and in this one, he's just kind of grumpy. It feels more like he's trying to be Blade from Blade Trinity outside of, Blade in My Little Pony, as it would appear to almost be slightly like in the first film. I don't know why I said My Little Pony, it just happened to come out, I don't know. But here's the thing, even within that premise, there's all this shit going on. But in the third one, he just seems really, it's more gritty, it's more quote-unquote realistic. How can it be realistic if there's vampires involved? It is a fantasy film the second you said it was involving vampires. It's that simple, guys. Stop trying to put things where things don't need to exist. Please, stop it. We already have weird enough films. We don't need this adding to it. Anyway, the plot of the film is simply this. Edgar Frog lives on his own in a trailer. He is a so-called vampire hunter. He hasn't hunted vampires in quite a while, and is trying to make ends meet in order to pay off the debt that he requires, and will be evicted from his trailer if he does not keep up payments. In order to do so, he sells off his comic book collection, where you meet the other main character of the film. She is not, but she's, sidekick to Edgar, if you will, throughout the film. A character called Zoe. Now, she's kind of cool. She's kind of cool to watch. She's interesting. She's fun to watch. Not amazing to watch. No one in this film is amazing to watch, I'll be honest. Not even Edgar Frog. The guy that saved Lost Boys could save Lost Boys 3. That's a sad day when you realise that that's happening. You also get the introduction of a guy called DJ X. Supposedly this guy is running around doing raves and stuff all over the world. And, the film is set in a place called San Cazador. I actually had to look up this place. I didn't think it existed. Hell, I thought all the places that were created in the Lost Boys franchise were made up. When I looked them up and realised they were actual places, I had a semi-freak out. I was like, holy shit, these places exist? And Google's like, yeah, of course they do, asshole, what's wrong with you? But anyway, moving on. He sells his comic book collection, doesn't even come close to trying to pay off his rent, which of course, kind of fair, I guess. But Zoe takes away some of the comic books in an attempt to find better prices for them in other places. She's a good friend to Edgar, it's all very well and good. Then Edgar drives off to a very dark and scary place, where he comes across his brother, Alan. Again, if you'd seen Lost Boys, you'll notice that Edgar and Alan Frog were the most amazing, badass vampire hunters, and they were also brothers. It was great. And in this one, Alan's a vampire. Still pretty good, but he's only half vampire, so it's not too bad. If you follow the Lost Boys rules, you know. You can become half vampire, but only until you become full vampire. Which is kind of cool, I guess. Slightly. Possibly. But Edgar, of course, is trying to get Alan to come back and to join in the fight, and of course it doesn't always work. You then also meet several other characters. You then actually do meet DJ X, along with this guy called Johnny Trash, who does an online blog, or vlog, or whatever you want to call it, I don't know. I think it's mainly vlog more than anything else. I think it's just a website where he talks about the raves and where they're going to be. But then you also get introduced to another character. A character who I'm not even going to say the name to because she's so pathetically bizarre and predictable. I'm just going to call her girl trope in a horror movie. She's girl trope in a horror movie. Or rather, sexy girl trope in a horror movie. She turns up talking to Edgar about how her brother Peter was taking drugs at a rave, something called the Thirst, and now he's being kept by DJ X, and she thinks there's vampires involved. Which is kind of true, because as Edgar finds out, the Thirst is actually vampire blood. Blood from what's called the head vampire. The head vampire, again, if you don't know Lost Boys lore, when a head vampire gives you his blood and you drink it, you become a half vampire. When you kill, you become a full vampire. It's that simple. So it becomes knowledge to Edgar that he believes Peter might be being turned into a half vampire and won't become a full vampire until he kills. So he goes off on an attempt to hunt down DJ X as well as the others and attempt to stop them. If he kills this guy, if he kills DJ X, who is believed to be the ultimate alpha vampire, then every vampire in the whole world, every half vampire I should say, will go back to normal with no issue, no questions asked. I'm thinking fairly cool. It's a fairly cool concept. But as Alan points out when he tries to go to him with this information, he simply says, the whole vampire thing is just a pyramid scheme. The whole thing was a pyramid scheme. You think you find the top, when actually you're just on the 5th to 14th thousandth level of where the actual top is. It's impossible to find, is what he's saying. Edgar goes hunting. A lot of blood ensues, a lot of really fake CGI blood, really bad explosions, a fairly badass sword fight at the end. Sexy chick trope turns out to be a betrayer of the entire group. Who saw that coming? Anyone who's ever watched a horror movie ever will know that that's the case. Jesus Christ. How are these people not even... How is it that these writers can get away with this shit? How? It bugs me. Edgar and Alan, of course, end up fighting against DJX, and they end up killing him in a rather unique and interesting way. Oh, I forgot to mention, Edgar takes Zoe, his newfound little assistant / apprentice, whatever you want to call her, and takes her to his weapons guy, who has all these really cool gadgets. You know, like there's a shotgun, there's like a mini rocket launcher that shoots out, you know, holy water grenades, which is such a cool concept. I love it. Just vampire hunting in general, I think it's genius as a concept, especially in these movies. But of course, upon defeating DJX with one of these this array of weaponry, it's discovered that none of the half vampires are going back to normal. So Edgar, of course, is wondering what the hell's going on, and it turns out that the Thirst, as well as the main head vampire, the ultimate alpha, is not DJX. It is, in fact, the kid Peter, the one that's being held hostage all the time, the supposedly sexy woman trope's little brother, who is not really her and he's not really her brother. He's actually a centuries-old vampire who is now basically doing the whole. Who basically now says to Edgar, "Actually, we need you as much as you need us. You want to kill us. We need to be kept in sort of a. We need to be thinned out every so often, so then the problematic areas are eliminated." Blah blah blah. And Edgar, of course, ends up saying, "Fuck you." And he and Alan end up trying to fight their main head vampire, who, of course, can control Alan, because, again, vampire logic, it's pretty cool, especially in the Lost Boys universe. He tries to convince Alan to try and kill Edgar, and Edgar ends up dousing the main alpha vampire in water, which he then blesses as it's dripping down him, turns it into holy water, and destroys him. Nothing could have been cooler, I feel, as the end of any vampire than watching the guy that you see in Lost Boys as a kid, you know, who sends a vampire to his death down a sink full of holy water as he dunks his head in it, has suddenly doused this kid, who is essentially a 1,000-year-old vampire, and start doing a Latin incantation to make it holy water, finishes, and proceeds to just go, "Fuck you!" as this guy explodes everywhere. This movie is awful. The CG is fucking terrible, some of the acting is so dry, and not in a good British way in that we're dry and witty. No, it's just dry and pathetic. It feels like that one jellyfish that's crawling up the beach, trying very hard not to shrivel in the great big sun that's beaming down on its ass. But I won't lie, and I'll say there are some good moments. For example, I'm sorry, killing a vampire while blessing water as it's dripping down him is kind of fun. And it's kind of a brilliant way to kill off a vampire. Especially if that vampire is the head of the vampires that you've been trying to kill ever since day fucking one. It's awesome. And you know, Corey Haim, I make excuses for the... I'm going to try and make excuses for the guy, but in this film, he's fucking brilliant. He is. He's not as funny as he is in the first Lost Boys film, I get it. But in the Thirst, you know what? If they were forcing people to do sequels, you know what? He hasn't done that bad a job. He really hasn't. He wears the headband. He does all sorts of really cool things. He actually does fight, and he actually does try and win the day, which I think is the main point of this. How does it compare in the whole sort of Lost Boys trilogy, if you will? I mean, I'll be honest, it's the second in the best in terms of films. Obviously, the first Lost Boys, 1987. Check it out if you haven't seen it. It's so cool. And then, you know what? Check out The Tribe, which is the second one, and The Thirst, which is the third one, for shits and giggles' sake. The second one, The Tribe, you will probably automatically forget the second you've watched it. It's every generic horror vampire movie trait rolled up into one, trying to be modern, and yet it's not all at the same time. It's really quite bizarre and depressing. But again, it's not saved by Corey Haim's Edgar Frog, but it's close. It's fairly fucking close. The Thirst, I have to say, it goes first Lost Boys, then it would go The Thirst, and then it would go The Tribe. But if we're including the comics in this, the Frog Brothers the comic book series, the Frog Brothers, I put that in between the first Lost Boys film and The Thirst. Just because that comic was so fucking cool for so fucking long. But anyway, Randomfish out, guys. Enjoy.